morning. Shabbat shalom. Good morning, everybody. Shabbat shalom. Few little differences today. You can see that I'm all decked out. Excellent. That's how I feel. Properly and proper, decked and proper. So this morning we have consecration at 10:30. There are pictures going to be taken at 9:20. I thought about canceling Torah study so that all this could take place, and I said no. So they're going to come and get me at 9:19. I'm going to run in there for the picture. You're going to be on your own. But I'm coming back. Please don't worry. You're not on your own indefinitely. Very good. I should just pause while you guys make all these brilliant comments. And then the service itself starts at 10:30, so we'll stop around 10:15. Unless we're in the middle of huge insights, then we will be. So I prepare for it now. Okay, so I'll be leaving, and you guys will do what you do, and I'll be back within a couple of minutes, I'm sure. Thanks to John Roush for the bagel sponsorship today, and Ingrid Halpert for the picking up of the bagels. I've gotten used to the applause for the bagels. That occasioned nothing. Okay, very good. Okay, so blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We praise you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, who sanctifies us through God's commandments, enjoining upon us the obligation to immerse ourselves in words of Torah. Amen. So we are, I think, forever and ever going to be one Torah portion behind. Today is, what is it? Vayishlach, I think. But we did not do Vayetze last week, and I want to go back to it because that's a very important chapter. I was thinking about it because we spent a lot of time on Abraham and Abraham's characteristics and his immersion and his situation with all kinds of crises. And I think it's very true to say, and one learns this from Robert Alter, among others, who has created a new form of Bible study, and that is the Bible is literature. It's not new, but Alter does it in a certain systematic way. And there are several others. And one of the features of literature, and especially of a novel, is that it deals with the development of character. It tries to show us the complexities of character, for confronting crises. And the word crisis means crossroads. It comes from the word that means crossroads. So a crisis is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a point at which the character comes to a decision moment, has to say which direction, which road is going to be taken. And I think we've seen that Abraham is one of these very fully developed characters, which is as I just said, a feature of novels. And when we get to Jacob, we're going to get to Jacob in a moment. We've already begun a little bit with Jacob and Esau. We also have come across a finely chiseled character. And I think that David said it very, very well last week, that in a way Jacob is two people. Jacob is Jacob, the wrestler, the one who does problematic things. We could try to explain them away, but I think the author wouldn't want us to. But Jacob is also Israel, the person of destiny, of promise, of grandeur. And I thought, David, I've been thinking about this, that Jacob has two names, summarizes the two kinds of individual he is, and our attempt to reconcile them may be misguided. Jacob represents an individual who is facing lots of obstacles and has the capacity to deal with them successfully. Jacob is a wrestler, and he's constantly wrestling, and he pays for it. You remember when he finally, at the very end of Genesis, goes down to Egypt, Joseph having been reconciled with his brothers, and Joseph introduces Jacob to the Pharaoh. And Pharaoh says, "How's it been going?" And Jacob says, "Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life." So Jacob recognizes that he's had a very complex life, some of them he himself being a cause. So, and when we get to Joseph is also a very complex character, as is Samuel, as is David, as is Solomon, and so on. So what we have, I mean, in a way, the novel, now I'm over my depth, but I'll say something about it, really is a contribution to a kind of secular humanism, that the individual is left to him or herself to struggle with events that happen to him or her and which he or she creates. I'm not trying to suggest that the novel has banished God, but there's certainly an emphasis on the complexity of human beings. So, retrojecting back to the Bible, where we have a novelistic feature already in this ancient literature. I mean, Homer has it too. The tragedians have it as well. There's not the only one. But when we have individuals of such complexity and stature, and couple it with a theologically saturated universe, so when we think of God, we think of this omnipotent power who can have his way with the world, as God does, having created the world, sending the flood and so on, sending the plagues. So we have this enormous, unique power, which the Bible is not at all compromising or denying. And yet in this universe, we have singularly autonomous, in a way, individuals. It's kind of a stunning thing, isn't it? When you think of a universe that is God-saturated, we might infer some sort of determinism, that God's power makes history, as God does from time to time, right? God makes the sun stand still so that Joshua can finish the battle. So God can create events, and yet in this potentially determined universe, deterministic universe, we have individuals of tremendous and complex autonomy. It's not as if a God-saturated universe makes human beings small. Human beings are large in this universe. So, the philosophical question of freedom and determinism, autonomy and heteronomy, autonomy, with nomos at the end, nomos is law. Autonomy is making our own laws. Heteronomy is others making laws for us. For example, God. So the Bible features heteronomy. God gives law, we don't. God causes us to obey the law or be punished. And yet, the Bible features a robust autonomy, as if to say we can be fully formed human beings in a God-saturated universe. Here's what I want to say about that. Wow. I mean, really, humanism, the Bible is a humanistic document. Doesn't mean that God needs to be made smaller. So that there are really two sources of our obligations, aren't there? God and ourselves. Is that excessive? Is that too much? But as we're looking carefully at Abraham and now Jacob, these are guys who could really feature in, Abraham could have written Montaigne's essays. You know, Montaigne, who decided at some point in his life that he was going to go to his study, and he was going to examine, in the rest of his life, examine something that is really crucial. And that what is crucial is himself. So he's telling us what it is like to sneeze, what it's like to have and to lose a friend. So this is, Montaigne wasn't bringing God into his study. He was talking about the grandeur of the human condition. Abraham could have been the subject of Montaigne's essays, couldn't he have been? And maybe Jacob as well. So I guess what I'm driving at here is there is a tension, maybe that's the word, between the grandeur of the human spirit, according to the Bible, sitting next to or beneath or within the grandeur of God, who is also a major player in biblical activities. So who was it who said, I need to make God small in order to, no, I know who that was. Was that Feuerbach, Ludwig Feuerbach, who was kind of a Marxist in the 19th century? I need to make God small in order to make human beings large. But that's not what the Bible does. The Bible makes human beings large in a context in which God is also large, if not larger. So I'm intrigued by this. It's a universe in which human dignity is not compromised, and yet the human dignity does not vanquish the God who is over us. I'm just so intrigued by it. So let's take a look here at Genesis chapter 28, which is the beginning of the portion Vayetze. And let's see what we have here. So Jacob left Beersheba, set out for Haran. He came upon a certain place and stopped there for the night. For the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of that place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. He had a dream. A stairway was set on the ground, and its top reached the sky, and angels of God were going up and down on it. I think it's Rashi who makes an interesting comment about this. The angels are not coming down and going up. They're going up and coming down, which would seem to suggest that the angels' location is on earth, and from there they go up. So I think Rashi makes the point that the angel's fundamental activity here is guarding Jacob, watching Jacob as Jacob is moving through, and they go up from their settled place. It's a small point, but again, Rashi is a very careful observer of what is actually going on in the text. And the Lord was standing beside him, and he said, I'm the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. The ground on which you are lying I'll assign to you and your offspring. Your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread out to the west, to the east, to the north, and to the south. I mean, think of Jews in 13th century Mainz reading this passage about the promise that the Jews would be spreading all over the world, and here they are in this one small location. But since this is God's prediction, the Jews in Mainz had to believe it's true. It's not true yet from what we can see, they might have said, but the promise is not annulled, and it will come to pass. How do I know this? God said it. All the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and your descendants, which is an echo of what God said to Abraham, reiterated. Remember, I'm with you. I'll protect you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you, which itself is a bit puzzling. Doesn't mean I will not leave you up to the point at which you have come to the land. I will not leave you until you're back here. But once you're back, I will leave you. And I think it's ambiguous. I think the biblical author would say it can't be the latter. It'll be the former, because God trails Jacob right to the end. Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is present in this place, and I didn't know it. A very powerful idea here, right? God is present. I mean, if we want to infer from that, what the biblical author may want us to infer is that we lead our lives thinking God is not here, and from time to time, oh my gosh, God is here. The birth of a baby, for example, a miraculous healing from an illness. Oh my gosh, God is here and I didn't know it. So it has resonance, this idea. Shaken, he said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the abode of God, and that is the gateway to heaven. Early in the morning, Jacob took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He named the site Bethel, Beit El, the house of God. Surely God is in this place and I didn't know it, is a way of saying this has become, through this activity, a sacred place, gaining its sacredness not from eternity, but from an action in history. Previously, the name of the city had been Luz. Jacob then made a vow. Okay, so this is a crucial moment, saying, if, it looks like we've got an if-then vow. If I'm going to make a vow that if X happens, I will do Y. Saying, if God remains with me, if he protects me on this journey that I am making and gives me bread to eat and clothing to wear, and if I return safe to my father's house, dash, in the text. No, this is the complex if clause. The dash suggests that we should really add then. There's no then here, but I think it's clear that it's intended, or could be made clear. Then the Lord shall be my God. What? Only if these things happen will the Lord be my God? And this stone which I have set up as a pillar shall be God's abode. And of all that you give me, I will set aside a tithe for you. Okay, so I want to read what Robert Alter says about this. I'm probably going to be interrupted by the picture coming, but I do want to take a look at this. So this is how Alter interprets if the Lord God be with me. Okay? The conditional form of the vow, that is, if the other party does such and such, then I on my part will do such and such in return, is well attested elsewhere in the Bible and in other ancient Near Eastern texts. But its use by Jacob has a characterizing particularity. Okay? This is not a general if-then statement. This reveals character. This is Jacob's character front and center. Okay? That is what Alter is saying, is this is a kind of logic that we find throughout texts. But it's not just an example of some general way of thinking. This is about Jacob. God has already promised him in a dream that he will do all these things for him. Jacob, however, remains the suspicious bargainer, and in quotes, a wrestler with words and conditions, just as he is a physical wrestler, a heel grabber. He carefully stipulated conditions of sale to the famished Esau. He was leery that he would be found out when Rebekah proposed her strategy of deception to him. These are the examples of Jacob as a wrestler, as a bargainer. Now he wants to be sure God will fulfill his side of the bargain before he commits himself to God's service. And later he will prove to be a sharp dealer in his transactions with his uncle Laban. So, Alter's view is, here we see revealed in its clearest possible way Jacob's essential character. And he's going to be suspicious, and he's going to hold out to make commitments until his conditions are met. So what kind of a pious individual is Jacob? He's bargaining with God here, okay? So Alter's view is we should take this as the translation gives it to us and reckon with something, I don't know, when we think of the conventions of faith, I believe in you. Yea, though the Messiah tarries, yet I will trust in his coming. How long would Jacob wait until he abandoned that principle? You know, the Messiah is supposed to come a week from Saturday. I'm waiting. I have faith. Now it's the Sunday after. Now it's the Sunday after that Sunday. Now it's a month later. Is Jacob holding out, or is Jacob saying, you know what? I'm going to believe in the coming of the Messiah if, only if, I get some signals, okay? So Jacob, and as we know, and as David pointed out, I'm constantly going back to that because I thought it was a wonderful insight. Jacob is Israel. Jacob is our chief ancestor. Are we wrestlers with God? I mean, is this one of the implications of the author who already knows something about Judaism and not just biblical characters? So I want to go back and notice something here. Lou, hold on just a second. So let's go back to verse 20. So, Va Yidar, and Vayidar Yaakov Neder, call Nidre. This is Neder, this is a vow. And Jacob, in biblical locution, vowed a vow. The verb and the noun come from the same root. But we would say Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and keep me baderech hazeh, along this journey, asher anochi holech, on which I am traveling, and will give me bread to eat and clothes to wear, and I will return in peace to the house of God, of my father, and God will be my God. So, and God will be my God is and Haya Adonai, God will be li, to me, a God. In other words, Alter's reading is not the only reading that's possible. Because we could say, and, when does the then come? According to Alter's reading, it comes, then God will be my God. But the then is merely the letter that means and. It means a lot of things. And it's plausible that it means then, but it's not necessary. Because the then might be, I'm going back, and God will be my God, then ha'evan hazot, this stone I will place as a monument in the house of God. In other words, this plausible reading completely softens the necessity of seeing Jacob as a wrestler here. Do you see the point? Do you see the point? So that, look, the translation in verse 21, which you can see, and if I return safe to my father's house, dash, that dash is not in the text. The dash is a suggestion that we've ended the protasis. I think this is the if is a protasis, and therefore is the apodosis, something like that. It's not necessary to do what even the translator has done and indicated that something big is happening with this dash. So what's to be made of this? I mean, one can have two understandings of Jacob, both of which are true, according to the Alter and the text. Jacob is a suspicious wrestler who's always bargaining. And we see that in a certain way he needs to be this kind of person. If he weren't, Esau, the first prayer of the Amida goes, praise are you, O Lord our God and God of our ancestors, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Esau. How long would we be saying that prayer if the covenant is in Esau's hands? Jacob, in a way, transcends or supersedes conventional morality to do what he thinks is necessary. Conventional morality is only limited, would be. If we had Jacob here, we would say, how could you do that? Well, what do you mean? You're just such a plain old conventional guy that I have to always be honest and so on and not dupe anybody? What's wrong with you? History forces us to face moments of disjunction where the whole thing could be lost. And I'm intending not to allow it to be lost. And the heck with your conventional morality. There's a higher morality, a morality of survival. So that the dash here captures who Jacob is. True? So the interpretation, the putting of the dash here, is the author's or the editor's way of saying, this is Jacob. And I know that I've added this dash without full justification. But as an active translator, I want to show that this is a very plausible, not only in terms of the grammar, because which vav is going to be the then, but it also brings out But what about what I've suggested here, that the then doesn't have to be placed there, but it could be, and if I return safe to my father's house, the Lord being my God, then I shall place this stone as a monument. Is this not Jacob as well? It is, isn't it? Because Jacob is on the trail of God's promise. So what do we have here? Here's my speculation. Two different things in one locution. It says X, and therefore it has to be X. But it's also Y. Jacob as wrestler, as skeptic, as bargainer, even to God. This passage draws out to what degree Jacob insists on being himself, and he's very true to himself, and therefore he is his own God. Let me just take it that far. But also, he's a devout worshiper of God. So how could both things be true? Good question. But Jacob is both. That's how big, I guess that's the point that's fascinating me. How big a character is Jacob, Yaakov, who is also Israel? Doubting God, questioning God, raising objections when they seem to be need to be raised, in a context of fidelity. A believer who is willing to express radical doubt. I'm going to say it again. Wow. I mean, this is a very modern view, isn't it? That one can be faithful even through radical skepticism. Because it says in, where is it, Jeremiah chapter 10, God is a God of truth. Adonai Elohim Emet. God cares for the truth. What kind of fidelity is it if in order to believe in God we have to lie? Why can't we believe and also doubt? I think this is really a key moment, and it's worthy of Thomas Mann, isn't it? The complexity of character here. Maya?
Just another point to show his skepticism. I mean, when he wakes up from his dream, he says, I didn't know the God is here.
Yeah.
So that means that the all-encompassing God is not what he is.
That's very nice. Maya's making the point here that we see this, a skeptical Jacob even earlier in this very narrative. So, yeah, Steve.
I'm struck by, if I come back in peace to my father's house, which he just had that experience where he's escaping from Esau's wrath. And it seems like that's very present in his thinking. Like he wants to come back to the land and in peace. And we're going to see in the next Parsha that he does. But I think these other things that he's asking for seem to be of a much lower quality. But coming back in peace, perhaps he has some corner of regret about what transpired.
Oh, interesting. And certainly recognizes for him it's an aberration to be away from home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, especially since Abraham was very clear that he didn't want Isaac to go back home, and he sent Eliezer. There's something about going back home which has some danger, is fraught in some way.
And that's really nice. We think of Isaac. I mean, Isaac is the only of the three patriarchs who leaves home. So both Abraham and Jacob are wanderers. Isaac represents the centrality of the land. I mean, we could make an inference from there. And Steve is pointing out that, but it's also Jacob who has fidelity to the land. It says father's house, but you're inferring, and I think fairly, that he wants to come back to his place. So Jacob is both a wanderer, and notice that he mentions several things, and this is the last. So there's kind of a crescendo of increasing importance, the most important being back to my place. I like that. Yes.
I'm wrestling with your initial thesis here.
How Jacob of you.
So what I'm thinking is an if-then statement he's on one train of thought, and then from the side comes this notion, the Lord shall be my God, as opposed to a logical extension of the path he was on. Like, it makes me think of Flatland, like Abbott, where it's like he's in a plane. The square is in a plane, and then a sphere passes through the plane, and all he sees is a point, and then a circle, and then the circle shrinks back as the sphere goes through the plane. And that's what it's like. The statement, "The Lord shall be my God," is coming out of the page, right? It's not part of the linear progression. I don't know if that makes any sense.
And what's the implication of what you're saying? That this is a standalone, this stands alone in importance? Maybe even it's the most dramatic in this sense of the if-then clauses. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, what I'm saying is that the significance, you're saying there's like a duality, right? And we're being asked to hold both things.
Yes.
And what I'm saying is God's space is intersecting the human space at this point.
In a way, taking charge of it?
Yeah, sorry.
Taking charge of it? God is taking charge of that space and asserting God's own
Well, I
prerogative.
think it the other way around, which is that Jacob is realizing that he exists in a bigger space than the human plane. And it intersects at this point of this covenant.
And you're presuming the more traditional reading here. You're not presuming that this is the then part of the clause.
That's right.
Then God will be.
It's orthogonal. It seems.
But I'm just wondering, I mean, if I was right about Steve's point, that coming back home represents a move higher, the crescendo, this becomes the highest. And if I return home, and if the Lord is my God, then. So if you're saying that it's up to the house, the land, my father's house, and then off to the side here is something separate, God reasserting God's self.
No, I'm not saying it's separate. I'm saying it's the same, it's just a different frame of reference.
And what is that frame of reference? God?
Yes.
Okay. And what's
In
the,
other words, it's beyond our human comprehension. It's coming from a larger plane that we can't, a larger space that we can't completely.
and what's the implication of that in this particular narrative?
I'm here on Earth,
Yeah.
but I also exist in this larger space.
Okay,
God's
okay,
realm.
okay. So it qualifies. I'm sorry?
I agree with that.
And I'm not sure I understand what that is. That this is not part of Jacob's logic. God is saying, I'm separate and have a dignity and a power of my own.
It's not separate.
It's not separate, but is it unique?
Yes.
Doris?
Well, I think Alter undervalues the transformative event that happens here to Jacob. He is shaken, that's what it says in 17. He is shaken. It is awesome. It is out of the clear blue that he has this dream. Prior chapter, he is on the run from Esau,
Yes.
who wants to kill him.
Yeah.
The next chapter says, according to Sarna, he is lighter.
Ice lighter.
He is lighter. He's been transformed by this, and he can't shake what's happened.
Oh.
And I think this is Jacob at a very critical and important point in the whole story of Jacob.
And what point is that?
He is prepared for a different future now, a destiny now that isn't just running away from Esau. He is being called.
I get you. And this is, in a way, your point, that God is in the situation, but in some sense unique, and that this is the pivot of the entire understanding. Yeah. To me, that interpretation flattens this out a little bit. I mean, then it becomes hierarchical. Finally, it's God, and that Jacob is going to devote himself to God. Did I misunderstand what your point is?
Well, I don't think it's hierarchical. I think it's like I said, I think it's orthogonal.
It's developmental.
It's developmental. Gosh.
When you're called, as we think is happening.
Uh-huh.
Bible
Yeah.
basically, you go one way or the other, and he is going to develop. He is still going to be a skeptic. He is still
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
have to negotiate things. But this is the moment when he's been called, and it shook him, and he cannot deny what has happened here.
This is the clarifying moment.
Yep.
Lou?
On the face of this, this is a very dangerous type of contract that a religion, that you would make in a religion. If you would ask, for example, Elie Wiesel what his interpretation of this, of this line was, you probably would get something a lot, very much different than what Alder or whoever's, proposing there.
What would it be? What would the difference be?
That there's no if then.
It's what?
There is no if then. There's only then.
What's the thens?
My belief in God doesn't depend on anything. Because what he said is that, coming out of the Holocaust, he said, I still believe in God. Even though all of this crap happened, my belief in God has not wavered.
No.
Was it, Yom Kippur?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
The prayer, the big prayer of Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
It says, do anything you want to me. My belief is unshakable.
Yeah, yeah. I think, by the way, that Wiesel's faith does depend on something. It depends on sanity.
Well, there was this is insanity. He experienced insanity. But I would also say that according to the book here, it cites an old thing that says that they, Rambam interprets it saying that Jacob feared that he may sin and forfeit his right for God's protection.
Yeah.
So it's like, they're already, the old scholars are trying, they're fudging their,
Something to wrestle with.
they realize how powerful this line is.
Lou, I have to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. I'm getting the call here. So we're at a crucial moment here in our discussion. I expect when I come back that there will be clarity. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Well, birds of a feather, you know. Okay. Yeah, it's not
Well, I think it's
Walk of God.
Well, you suggested reorientation of cases. Not giving that up. No. Yes. And God will be my God. Okay, folks, here we are. Lou, I apologize for interrupting you right in the middle. Jim?
Don't you think this whole passage stresses the power of the mind and dreams? Because we've talked over the years about this wrestling match and who's the other guy.
Yeah.
I think it's the same guy. I think he's wrestling with himself, just like we all do. I mean, at this point in our age that we mostly are,
That what? The,
You certainly wrestle with yourself.
why, I didn't hear him as a good example.
You wrestle with yourself regarding regrets, or what decision should I make, or did I make the right decision? And I think Jacob's wrestling with himself,
Yeah.
and he's a very complex individual, and all these thoughts are coming out of his head, whether God put them in there or not, that's part of the question. But it's all coming out of him. You said at the preface, he's two people.
Yeah.
He's at least two people. And he's constantly wrestling with himself as to what to do here.
He's two people, but they're both in his head.
Yeah, he's one, he's two, whatever. He's wrestling with himself, as I think sooner or later we all do.
Yeah. Well, to me, that's half the whole picture. Yeah, wrestling with himself, but also wrestling with God. He also, doesn't he embrace the simple claim, I'm saying simple, not simplistic, that there is a God in the universe to whom I'm beholden while I'm wrestling with myself, while I'm autonomous.
Right, that's why he's wrestling. Shall I proceed with what I think I'm being told here?
Yeah, okay, good.
Or should I do something else?
No, I think that's great. No, I think that's great. Good, very good, okay. So, David,
So I just wanted to make the point that while I like one interpretation that Jacob is a very complex character and he's wrestling
Yeah.
with God.
Yeah.
This bargain that he's making, I don't see as a bargain. What he does, he's just had God tell him, I'm gonna do all this good stuff for you. And God doesn't ask anything of Jacob in that. God just tells Jacob what he's gonna do. So Jacob wakes up, and the first thing he does, and it's clear that it's the first thing he does.
Yes.
Because the verse says, and Jacob got up early in the morning.
Okay.
Quite early.
Oh.
Because it was the very first thing he did.
where do you see that, by the way?
That's verse 18.
Verse 18.
Jacob got up first thing in the morning.
Okay, very good. Uh-huh,
Awakens from this.
uh-huh.
He makes a vow. In other words, what he's doing is he is responding to what God has told him God is going to do for him by saying, well, in that case, I'm going to do something for God.
Yeah.
And all this stuff about God is going to be with me and watch over me, et cetera, that's, he will fulfill the vow as soon as he gets back. He can't do it before then. So he's saying, okay, God has told me all these things are going to happen. When they have happened, I'm going to set up a monument and I'm going to tithe everything. So it's not a bargain, it's an offer.
So-
a vow.
so
And this
there-
is the first vow, I believe, that we
Oh, is
encounter
that true? All right.
in the Torah.
So there are two interpretations of this passage. One is the altar. I'm sorry?
And I like them both.
You like them both, but you favor Rashi's. Rashi's, which is, and I will build you an altar when I get back. I'm not doubting you, and you're my God. I will build an altar.
Yes.
That's Rashi's interpretation of it.
I
Altar.
want to commit myself on how much more I agree with one.
Okay, very good, very good.
Them both, but I want to say that there is a very solid argument for Jacob making a vow.
For sure, he does. But you don't find both interpretations in this particular episode,
Well, I sort of do.
do you? Do you? He's bargaining as well. He's doubtful as well.
I see that as a possible.
Okay, very good, excellent. Okay, very good, very good, very good. Yeah. Huh. You know, the whole, it all depends on something extremely small. And that is, in Hebrew, one line, the vav.
Yeah.
And how the multiple ways that can be interpreted. So you wonder, I mean, I always wonder about what's in the head of the author. Right? Does the author recognize that he's putting in, he's not fabricating ambiguity. He's capturing it. That the ambiguity is real, and he's got a grammatical means with which to bring the ambiguity in. And
That's why I like both interpretations.
that's why you like both. Yeah. I love the first one, but I see the second one. Yeah.
Isn't, God makes the promise to the Jewish people from the beginning, he makes it many, many times, and it is an if-then.
It's what?
It is an if-then. It's not, I'm going to give you this land. It's if you follow my statutes, and if you believe in me, and yada, 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 then you get the land.
Yeah.
It doesn't just say, I love you so much, you get the land.
Well, you know, I like that. So, but there are two forms of covenant. One is the if-then covenant. The other is the covenant of promise. I'm going to give this land to you and your descendants forever. So within this broader framework that you've got this land, I'm not going to tell you when you're going to get it or when you might lose it, but you're going to have it forever. That the ambiguity about when, let's call it history. History happens in ways we can't predict. That's the if-then within the promise. So that, yeah, the promise is there, but it's at any particular moment, it's qualified by the if-then.
But you're not going to get it all if you don't follow his statutes.
You are going to get it all, but I can't tell you when. In a way, it sort of makes the very notion of the end of days, the eschaton, the coming of the Messiah, possible when the tension of the if-then is resolved once and for all, right? The hope for the end of history, which some guy predicted, and history continued to happen. Go figure. Yes?
Ambiguity is a very common poetic device, like the double meaning of a word in a song or a poem. And I was wondering if, in the historical context that this was written, whether that would have been a common mechanic, like were there other nearby poems that used ambiguity very deliberately to convey meaning, like from Homer or whatever?
Yeah. Wow.
Or did
So the question is how prominent in the culture of the time is the notion of ambiguity? And I like your point, because I am focusing on ambiguity. And is this just idiosyncratic? This guy standing up here just loves the notion of ambiguity? Or does it have broad cultural salience, is your question? Right. Well, let me think of one interesting example. Who's the hero of the Iliad? Well, a lot of time is spent on Achilles. Achilles sulks in his tent for 3/4 of the book and lets all of his men, and it's only when his friend Patroclus is killed by Hector that he comes to the... How does the Iliad end? It ends with the word Hector, tamer of horses. Now, Hector is the hero of the Trojans. So with which group does Homer gravitate? It's ambiguous. I mean, Achilles has this spat with Agamemnon at the beginning over the concubine. And while his friends and comrades are fighting the war, he's sitting in his tent. He's watching TV. So, I mean, I think that's we would imagine that Homer is going to favor the Greeks, but it's not clear that he does. Yeah, what about the Odyssey? I mean, the Odyssey opens that I sing of a man of twists and turns, so that Odysseus, by definition, is a schemer. It's a very Jacob-like figure. So I think. Let me try a generalization. All great literature is going to feature ambiguity. Otherwise, who needs it? I mean, if I want something that's clear, I'll watch the Ohio State game tonight. Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. There's a book by, who is the guy? Is it Empson, 7 Forms of Ambiguity? Who wrote that book? In which he deals with different ways something can be ambiguous. I've always wanted to read that book. Michael?
Sorry, I want to try this one more time.
You're going to try it again.
What if,
No, you're wrong.
what if time is just a human projection and really has no significance in the space of God's time? So then when Jacob is saying, I will do such and such when something happens, or when is this going to happen? And it has no significance in God's, in the dimension of God. That's attention.
That's intention.
That's a tension.
That's attention, time and eternity.
In other words, the humans are imposing the constraint of time on this, and it has no relevance.
Yeah, yeah.
God says, this is your land. There's no time dimension necessarily. Anyway, I think that's where.
Well, that's an interesting point, time and eternity, that we impose a clock on continuity, whereas in God's mind there is no clock. Yeah, I think it's Augustine, actually, in his Confessions, who says, if somebody asks me about time, I can say something until you ask me just what is it. And then I have no idea how to talk about it. Kant, for example, in the Critique of Reason, thinks that space and time aren't actual. We impose space and time on the phenomena that pour in on us. But I think the idea about time and eternity, the promise is not in time. The promise, this will be your land, is atemporal, whereas the if-then is temporal, so that we have both in the Torah. I think that's part of what gives it its grandeur in a way. It's very granular. This decision, this situation, all matter. And yet there's this grand timelessness that hovers over it. Yeah. Wow. Gee. Larry?
Would you say that part of the ambiguity about the land and time is reflected by the fact that in modern Israel today, in ancient Israel, there's always war going on. There's always turmoil going on. And it's hard for me just to sort of figure out what's going on.
What's going on because of the turmoil?
Well, yeah, because God says it's going to be your land, but it's just very, rough through the years. And you never know if it's going to be their land.
Well, there are two things. One is that if you believe in this God, then you do believe that in some point, maybe the end of time, the turmoil will be over, that you're going to dwell in this land forever, and every person shall dwell under his vine and his fig tree, and no one shall make us afraid. And that promise, of course, is made right here, which is not only theoretical. I mean, I'm always saying that it's on the mind of the Jews throughout history. There is going to be a moment when all this turmoil ceases. And let's face it, I mean, let's recognize that for long stretches of time the Israelites did own the land. It came to an end, there were expulsions and so on, but it's not as if we were never there. And one of the things that caused such an uproar at, I think, the Sixth Zionist Congress was Theodore Herzl willing to accept the Uganda offer that the Jews will give you a place, England said, we'll give you a place in Eastern Africa, and you can be safe. And for Herzl, his image was, when the house is burning, you get the inhabitants out of the house. You don't ask before you go get them, where are they going? You get them out and get them to safety. Now, what happened at that Congress is the so-called Zionists, they named themselves, we're the Zionists from Eastern Europe, bolted from that session and said, we're not going to be part of this endeavor at all. And so Herzl recognized that it's got to be the land of Israel, so that in some way the land of Israel has always existed eternally in the mind of the Jewish people, irrespective of the turmoil that's happening on the ground. Yeah.
But maybe the turmoil is indicative of slippage related to the statutes. Like, it just seems like we're being sort of dismissive of the conditions. So there seems like there's all these periods over time where the Jews lose the land, Sodom and Gomorrah, all these different scenarios.
Yes.
Maybe that's a reminder that you're not following the statutes, and it's a reminder to get sort of back in line with. I guess I'm confused by why we're a little dismissive of, if you follow these things, you will have the land. Will we have the land when we're perfectly following the statutes, or is it conditional?
Well, it's both, isn't it? The whole course of biblical history is that we're on the land or we're off the land as a product of how we behave.
Right.
Although in some sense that's irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. God brought us back from Babylonia. God brought us back from Berlin.
Perfection isn't the goal, right? That's why there are no saints in Judaism, right? Because perfection isn't the goal.
Is not the goal?
No, perfection isn't the goal. Humanity is there's always error, right? Like, you're imperfect. Like God is perfect, humans are imperfect. So at what point?
Yeah. I think it's an interesting point. The centrality of the mitzvot, of the commandments, is you can do better today than yesterday. We know you're not going to follow them all. In a certain sense, the centrality of the commandments is that the broad sweep of history in some way can be bracketed out. As I hear myself saying this, I wonder if I'm right. Where how I act today is an inherent good, and it doesn't lead to something. And yet, the biblical idea is we make our destiny fundamentally as a people. So I think perfection, the first chapter of Genesis finds God as fully sovereign. And therefore, it lays the foundation for whatever God says could happen will happen, because the God of creation made matter out of nothing. So God's promises are not empty. It's just that it takes a little long to get to them. I thought I saw somebody else's hand. Judy.
So, back to Jacob. I'll play with the bargain, Jacob. I think what feels it kind of, what I resonate with is how human Jacob is.
There you
And
go.
I also think about, he embodies a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of fear, a lot of mistrust from his very beginnings to this journey. So there's a lot of adrenaline kicking in here.
Yeah.
And so here he has his dream, and this dream really reassures him, but he can't fully embrace it. He still struggles with even that promise
Yeah.
that he gets in the dream. And that the if then is, I think, for me, he really speaks to the struggle of building faith. It's really easy to have faith when things are good.
Yeah.
It's not so easy to have faith when things aren't so good.
Yeah.
And, like people, well, if things go the right way, I'm going back to church. People will say things like that.
Yeah.
But I think he really captures that for me in a very human, lived way.
The struggle for faith in circumstances that keep happening.
And also the fact that our own human experiences, that maybe, some build trust and some don't build trust.
Yeah.
How do those feed into how we kind of negotiate this, our say, more ironclad belief with our skepticism
Yeah.
and a feeling of abandonment?
Right. Right. I think of Lou's point about Elie Wiesel's faith and the comment I made about it, that there is a kind of given for him. He wants to put despair off with plenty of evidence for justifying despair, because despair is a terrible way to live a life. So for Wiesel, it seems to me that there is some bottom line faith that is required. And maybe this is true about Jacob as well, as Michael and Doris are saying, and some of us. And I suppose that's the grandeur of it. It's not just he's facing the moment as best he can. There is some kind of framework overarching it. It too is under assault, but he's trying to sustain it. Consecration in 10 minutes. I'm just asking myself, how many Torah portions behind could we be? So let's read, Cindy.
One word that doesn't come out, I think is part of Jacob's inheritance, is guilt. And the guilt plays into all of this, I think, as well. He comes with a burden. He does not come, clean yet.
And a burden of his own making.
Yes, so.
Are you inferring it, or do you see it?
Well, we know that this has happened. So how can the reader, how can the author not have it come back to him?
What has happened? This right?
He stole
The birthright and the blessing. So you're feeling here that though he gets it and he has to struggle then for his father's blessing, that there's always a psychological remnant here that's at work. You're psychologizing him. That seems like it's a criticism. It isn't. Well, if Cindy is right, this is another dimension of a great biblical character, what we might call inwardness, that he has an inner life that is constantly working on him. Yeah, right, when he favors Joseph because Joseph is the son of his old age and the son of his wife, he's got to feel something for the brothers. The brothers solve their own problem. Jacob is no part of a solution to the sibling rivalry, which is interesting. In a way, he's read himself out of the dynamic. Let's make a little pass at chapter 29, quick, before I have to go. One of the worst things that can happen to a clergy person is to come into a service 10 minutes late. This I don't want to do. Jacob resumed his journey and came to the land of the Easterners. There, before his eyes, was a well in the open. The 3 flocks of sheep were lying there beside it, for the flocks were watered from that well. The stone on the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, the stone would be rolled from the mouth of the well and the sheep watered. Notice, when all the flocks were gathered there, and we infer, and their shepherds, then and only then can this rock be rolled off. And it stands to reason here, because we don't want one little group to take all the water. So it's going to take a collective effort to get that rock off the water, off the well. When all the flocks, verse 3, were gathered there, the stone would be rolled from the mouth of the well, and the sheep watered, and the stone would be put back on the mouth of the well. And Jacob said to them, my friends, where are you from? And they said, we're from Haran. And he said to them, do you know Laban, the son of Nahor? Remember, and Nahor is one of Abraham's brothers. We learned that right before the call of Abraham. And they said, yes, we do. And he said, is he well? And they answered, yes, he's well. In Hebrew, is he well? Hashalom lo? Is there peace, wellness with him? And there's his daughter Rachel coming with the flock, and he said, it is still broad daylight, too early to round up the animals, water the flock and take them to pasture. But they said, we can't until all the flocks are rounded up. Then the stone is rolled off the mouth of the well, and we water the sheep. While he was still speaking, don't you love that locution? Right in the middle of this conversation, something is happening. Rachel came with her father's flock, for she was a shepherdess. And when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Laban, and the flock of his uncle Laban, Jacob went up and rolled the stone off the mouth of the well. How great is that? I'm sorry?
Highly motivated.
It's highly motivated. So the author here, by indirection, is saying to us he's immediately infatuated with Rachel, and it energizes him to do this. Motivated, as Steve said. And rolled the mouth of the well and watered the flock. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and broke into tears. Jacob told Rachel, you remember when Isaac gets a wife, it's the servant of Abraham who does the work of getting her and brings her back to Isaac. Here, Jacob moves front and center to do this himself. I think the contrast is interesting. Isaac is a more recessive figure than is Jacob or Abraham. Verse 12, Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman, that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. And another character running. On hearing the news of his sister's son Jacob, Laban ran to greet him and embraced him and kissed him and took him into his house. He told Laban all that had happened, and Laban said to him, you are truly my bone and flesh. And Laban said to Jacob, just because you're a kinsman, should you be serving me for nothing? So Laban is a kind of conniving figure as well, unambiguously. There's no ambiguity in Laban. Now Laban had two daughters. The name of the older one was Leah. The name of the younger one was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes. Rachel was shapely and beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel. So he answered, I'll serve you 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel. Laban said, better that I give her to you than I should give her to another. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of his love for her. What a great line. Speaking of time. Time is subjective here, right? So the time is objective, clock time. But as we experience time, it's very subjective. And then I often during Torah study look at my watch and I say, my God, is it really an hour we've been at this? It just seems like a few minutes. Then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, for my time is fulfilled and I may cohabit with her. And Laban gathered all the people, made a feast. When the evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to him. I have to stop because I need to really go to the service. So continuing next week. Hope everybody has a great week. Shabbat Shalom. It's hard to stop, but I have to. It doesn't get old.
No, but
We study habits. David is a mathematician. So you are? Yeah. How long do you have? Yes. Earlier than either of us was there, but
So the singer brothers, see each other twice a week. Yeah. Just
if you give us your telephone number, yes.
starting out somewhere, narrow, discrete.
They assume nurses are generic nurses, they can apply to any patient with any.
And they use a mindless ratio of patients.
Complexity of care.
So, well, I have a background in biochemistry. Business strategy. Anyway, so underneath that is architecture, patient population, so that's just the first problem. Oh, you are? My daughter went to That's right. That's lots to talk about. You know, I was thinking of this as I'm trying to introduce that to my kids. And it is so weird.
Everything that happened or will happen.
Use this, but you've seen this, but use this.
In other words, God can see everything.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the opposite way, which is not that God is outside of us, but that we're tracking it.
Yes, that's right.
What does God's justice mean? If you say God exists outside of us.
Justice is another measure.
But Just because you're a predisposition doesn't mean that you can't look at it any other way. You can't do anything.
That's true. That's true. We are limited. We're not omniscient.